Picture this, November 4th, 1985, in Washington, D.C. His life as he knew it was about to end in every way that mattered. Within hours, he confessed to crimes he did not commit. Convicted of espionage, he was sentenced to 25 years. His name was Edward Brennan, and he was no spy. He noticed something he shouldn't have and tried to fix it. Edward Brennan was by all accounts unremarkable. He worked at a consulting firm for 18 years, handling accounts payable and tax preparation. He lived with his wife Margaret in a modest townhouse, drove a 7-year-old Honda Accord, and had no children. His hobbies were minimal reading, watching the news walks. He had never been arrested, never been in trouble, never done anything to draw attention. He had no security clearance because he never needed one. His work involved numbers, not secrets. He believed in systems, in reporting wrongdoing. He voted paid taxes and trusted institutions. That faith made what happened possible. When those institutions failed him, he couldn't accept it. When he tried to fix it, they turned on him completely. September 12, 1985, Montrose Park. Edward watched the sky turn from orange to violet. 51 years old, routine evening walk. He noticed a figure near the eastern pathway. The figure disappeared into the dimming light. Picture this, nearly every evening after work, a quiet routine. Unremarkable, a habit that defined his quiet English life. But one evening, something was different. A figure, obscured by elm shadows, paused near the eastern path. A man in a dark coat, placing something under the bench. He walked away, deliberately disappearing into the dim light. Brennan watched him vanish. It seemed insignificant. At first, people leave things, newspapers, wrappers, urban debris. But his posture, his purpose, lodged in Brennan's mind. He waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The park emptied. Joggers headed home. Benches became almost vacant. Brennan walked to the bench gravel, crunching softly. A manila envelope taped under the seat caught his eye. He pulled it free. No name, no address, no markings. Inside, 2 Polaroid photos and a sheet of nonsense. Photos of electronic components, circuit boards, casings. The paper was worse, rows of numbers and letters. Gibberish, a puzzle he couldn't solve, unbroken streams. He felt the cold edge of something he couldn't name. This was deliberate, hidden, done with great care. Brennan pocketed the envelope and walked home. He didn't sleep well that night. Unease filled his mind. He brought the envelope to the 2nd District Police. He described the man's 6 feet dark coat, no features. Sergeant Calloway accepted it with tired professionalism. They'd look into it. Brennan left feeling his civic duty. Picture this. Brennan walks into the 2nd District Station. He recounts the events describing the mysterious man. He hands over the envelope, a key piece of evidence. The sergeant accepts it, a routine task for him. Brennan leaves, hoping for a follow-up that never comes. Weeks pass with no word, his hopes slowly fading. Brennan calls only to be met with bureaucratic silence. He realizes the case is forgotten, lost in the system. So Brennan decides to take matters into his own hands. He begins watching Montrose Park night after night. He blends in a newspaper and coffee, his only cover. Most nights, nothing happens, just empty benches. The park bench becomes an obsession for Brennan. Margaret, his wife, notices his strange behavior. He tries to explain, but it sounds like paranoia. He can't shake the feeling it's something important. 1985, the Cold War is still raging. Espionage is a reality. Washington, D.C., the center. Brennan knows about dead drops, hidden exchanges. He's convinced he's found a dead drop location. November 4th, 1985, he sees the man. Same coat, same movements, something feels off. The man slides something beneath the park bench. Picture this, a man piecing together stories, hearing whispers of hidden truths. He knew spies used dead drops, secret spots for exchanging information. The more he considered, the more convinced he was he'd found one. November 4th, 1985. He sat 40 yards from the bench. He saw the man again. Same coat, same movements, deliberate and slow. He glanced around, bent down, and slid something beneath the seat. He straightened, adjusted his coat, and walked away unhurried. Brennan's heart pounded. He waited, counting seconds, watching him disappear. He stood, walked to the bench. The envelope was there, taped underneath. He pulled it free, felt its weight, turning to leave, when he heard a shout. He didn't understand. Men ran toward him, shouting commands. Hands up, get on the ground, he froze, struggling to understand. Someone slammed into him face first, on the gravel path. His glasses flew off arms, wrenched back handcuffs, biting his wrists. He tried to explain, but no one listened. Voices surrounded him. He wasn't running anything, reported it months ago, just figuring it out. They were FBI, not local police, not interested in his explanations. They pulled him up, searched him, led him to an unmarked sedan. Documentation sparse, much classified. He was taken to a basement, a room with concrete walls, a metal table in Washington, D.C. area. He was held for 36 hours. Time became difficult to measure. Interrogated repeatedly alone, and in pairs, same questions over and over. Who are you working for? Passing information. Coded messages? Handler? He found the first envelope in September, reported it to the police. Imagine him in a place unknown, held for 36 hours. Time blurred, without a watch or daylight, his ordeal began. Agents questioned him alone, and in pairs, relentlessly probing. Who do you work for? How long have you passed information? What do the coded messages contain? Who is your handler? Brennan repeated his story. Envelope in September, reported it. Police did nothing. He returned to the park, seeking answers. No espionage, no foreign ties, no knowledge of the codes. But the agents disbelieved him. The story, too perfectly crafted. They surveilled the dead drop, an active counterintelligence op. Retrieving the envelope placed him in the center of it all. Interrogation methods are disputed, some remain classified. Brennan alleged techniques exceeding standard questioning. Stress position, sleep deprivation, bright lights, loud sounds. His wife in custody, an accomplice, unless he cooperated. A false claim, but effective. Edward Brennan broke. He confessed to what they wanted, working for the Soviets. Recruited years ago, passing information, a dead drop in D.C. None of it was true. An accountant, no classified access. No security clearance, no intelligence work, just pressure. Exhausted, terrified, he gave them what they wanted. He signed a statement. He admitted to espionage. Edward Brennan was arrested, charged under the Espionage Act. Conspiracy to transmit national defense information. The case was handled quietly, no press, no leaks. FBI and DOJ moved to contain details, citing security. Imagine the pressure, the exhaustion. He gave them what they wanted, a signed confession. He admitted to espionage. Edward Brennan was arrested under the Espionage Act of 1917. He was charged with conspiracy to transmit national defense information to a foreign government. The case was handled quietly, no press conferences, no media leaks, no public announcements. The FBI and the Department of Justice moved quickly, citing national security concerns. Brennan was held without bail, transferred to a federal detention facility. His access to legal counsel was delayed while the government finalized its case. His court-appointed attorney, a young public defender, recognized the problems with the confession. He filed motions to suppress the statement, arguing it had been obtained under coercive conditions. The government pushed back hard, arguing his actions showed a pattern of suspicious behavior. They introduced evidence showing the dead drop had been used to pass sensitive information. The government argued that Brennan could have been acting as a courier even without clearance. The trial began in federal court in Washington, D.C. in January of 1986. It lasted 9 days. The prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence and Brennan's coerced confession. FBI agents testified about the surveillance operation and the materials found in the dead drop. They argued Brennan's presence at the park and his confession pointed to espionage. The defense countered that Brennan had reported the first envelope to the police. His actions were those of a concerned citizen, not a spy, and his confession was extracted under duress. The judge ruled that much of the interrogation evidence could not be disclosed. His attorney was left fighting with one hand tied behind his back. On February 4, 1986, the jury returned a guilty verdict. Edward Brennan was convicted on 2 counts of espionage. On March 12, 1986, he was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The judge stated that Brennan's actions had endangered national security. The court had a duty to send a clear message that such conduct would not be tolerated. Brennan, standing at the defense table, said nothing. His face was blank. His eyes. Imagine him fighting with one hand metaphorically tied. February 4, 1986, brought a verdict. Edward Brennan was found guilty on 2 counts. March 12, 1986, brought his sentence. 25 years in federal prison awaited him. The judge, a Reagan appointee, spoke sternly. His actions endangered national security. The court had to send a clear message, he declared. Brennan stood silent, his face blank, his eyes hollow. The man from Montrose Park was gone. He was transferred to Lewisburg Penitentiary, a high-security prison for dangerous criminals. He couldn't cope. He talked to himself, stared blankly, unable to accept his fate. He wrote rambling letters to his wife, insisting on his innocence, obsessing over details. Margaret visited twice, but the visits were too painful. She stopped coming. By the fall of 1986, his mental state deteriorated. He was moved to the psychiatric unit. He was diagnosed with severe depression and possible delusional disorder. His lawyers filed appeals, arguing false confession and inadequate representation, but they failed. The case faded from public awareness. Focus shifted to disrupting Soviet espionage. Few cared about Brennan's fate. Investigative journalists and civil liberties attorneys took interest. They filed Freedom of Information Act requests seeking FBI surveillance documents. Most materials were classified or heavily redacted, but some troubling facts emerged. Brennan reported the first envelope to the Metropolitan Police in September 1985, exactly as he claimed. Internal memos showed the report was filed and then ignored. Not forwarded to any federal agency, not investigated in any meaningful way. Evidence suggested the FBI's surveillance began before Brennan approached the bench, which meant the truth was buried deep beneath layers of secrecy and deception. The system failed an innocent man. Imagine the classified materials, heavily redacted, hiding truths. Records showed Edward Brennan reported the envelope in 1985. The report was filed and ignored, never reaching federal agencies. The FBI surveilled the dead drop before Brennan's involvement. Why did the FBI allow Brennan to retrieve the envelope? Miscommunication and operational error led to Brennan's capture. The agents assumed he was the target they had been waiting for. Prosecuting Brennan was preferable to admitting they had no target. Cold War pressure demanded espionage convictions regardless of truth. Brennan's case was a significant success, right or wrong. Edward Brennan spent his life in federal custody, never released. He was never pardoned, never exonerated from the accusations. His mental health declined, disconnected from the world. He died in 1998 at the age of 64. His death was noted in a brief administrative report. The Brennan case resurfaced in discussions about wrongful convictions, coerced confessions and excesses of Cold War prosecutions. Legal scholars point to it as a miscarriage of justice. Circumstantial evidence and aggressive interrogation played a part. A climate of fear led to devastating miscarriages of justice. Civil liberties organizations argue for greater transparency. Stronger protections against coercive interrogation are needed. The case highlights the dangers of national security prosecutions. His passing received little notice, a brief report from the Bureau of Prisons. The Brennan case occasionally resurfaced a discussion of wrongful convictions. Circumstantial evidence, aggressive, questioning a climate of fear. Civil liberties groups argued for transparency and protection. Edward Brennan's story remains obscure, a footnote in Cold War history. The real spy was never identified, lost in the shadows of the era. FBI documents confirmed the investigation continued after Brennan's arrest. A Department of Defense contractor was a suspect, details classified. It remains unclear if the suspect was ever prosecuted or fled the country. What is clear is that Edward Brennan was not the guilty party. The bench in Montrose Park still exists, weathered and unremarkable. Joggers, tourists, and local residents pass by unaware of its history. The park has changed, but the bench remains unmarked and unmemorialized. It is just a bench, a fitting monument to what happened there. Not a thrilling moment, but something far more mundane and tragic. An ordinary man tried to do the right thing and was destroyed. The story is about the fragility of innocence and institutional power, about being swept up and discarded at the wrong time. Fear can override reason and compassion in the pursuit of justice. Brennan's life was ruined because it was easier to convict him. The real guilty party slipped away, lost in the system's failures. By the time anyone questioned the decision, it was far too late. The envelope containing secrets, the beginning of the end. The envelope, a symbol of betrayal and lost innocence. A person swept up, discarded, wrong place, wrong time. Fear overrides reason. Compassion lost in the shadows. Brennan's life ruined, easier to convict than admit error. Too late to question the decision, sealed in time. 1985, an envelope with secrets. Technical specs, encrypted radio military installations, classified secret insights into NATO communications. Photos of components, coded message intelligence exchange. A significant breach of national security unfolded. Edward Brennan, nothing to do with it, innocent. He investigated, cared, and lost everything. 2003 motion to vacate the conviction. FBI withheld exculpatory evidence during the trial. Internal memos questioned the spy profile fit. Motion denied, legal standard not met, injustice. Decision not appealed, The case closed, unresolved. His wife moved on, did not want to relive the past. The conviction stands a convicted spy, a traitor. Secrets sold to the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The truth buried fading memories, something different. Truth not good at correcting the official record. A case file, a prison record, remains as evidence. A bench in a park, a mistake of paying attention. September evening, 1985, a fateful choice.